Okay, welcome back to Inspired to Life. I'm Robyn Ivy, and I'm so excited today to share my guest, Martha Santos. I'm going to read her bio. Hi, Martha.
Hi,
Okay, here we go. Do you pronounce it Quito or Quito?
Quito.
Quito. Okay, thank you. Okay, a native of Quito, Ecuador, Martha Santos is an associate professor of history at the University of Akron, Ohio, where she also researches on women's and gender history, cultures of violence, and slavery and emancipation in Brazil. Her academic research has been funded by Harvard University, the National Endowments for the Humanities, and the Harry Frank Guggenheim Foundation. She's the author of Cleansing Honor with Blood, Masculinity, Violence, and Power in the Backlands of Northeast Brazil. Martha is also a dancer with several years of experience training and performing salsa and West African dances in a variety of dance troupes and companies, including Soul City of Angels, a salsa dance company in Cleveland. In 2019, she started to integrate her career as a historian with her love for dance, developing her experiential and interdisciplinary course, Salsa, History in Motion, that incorporated history and dance practice in the teaching and learning of salsa history in the Caribbean and New York. Martha will be teaching this course along with others as a visiting scholar at the Sorbonne University in Paris in the fall of 2021. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Me too. I was so honored that our friend put us in touch with each other, because I was asking a mutual friend of ours if he knew of anybody that was amazing that I had to know. And I love that you were the first person who came to mind.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful referral, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that sort of thing that happens that you don't know exactly how it happens, but it happens and it's great. So
Yeah. Well, one of the things I really appreciate about you is like this whole conversation series is about helping people really be with what's here and move into what's next. And you have such a beautiful story of integration and of learning to give yourself permission to allow yourself to be fully who you are. And I'm so excited we get to share that story with the listeners.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. Me too. I don't get to say that story a lot either because I'm still, very much an academic and I'm a professor of history. So I tend not to talk a lot about me. I
Yeah.
tend to talk a lot more about my research and my work. So
Sure.
actually, when Dave, our mutual friend, invited me to speak with his students about my journey into dancing and combining my academic career with dancing, it was a really great opportunity, and this is also your invitation is a great opportunity for me to talk about that part of my life.
Well, I think in this moment in time, while people are really wanting to reemerge in a better way, I think it's important for people to hear stories of real people who have chosen to live their life on their terms and to choose to not put parts of themselves aside in order to live a full life, right? And I'd love for you to start and with nobody else have I been like, let's start at the beginning. But I actually feel like in your case, it makes a lot of sense to start at the beginning. So you were born in Ecuador and raised in a fairly religious and scholarly family. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so yeah, I was born in Quito, Ecuador, which is a beautiful city in the Andes Mountains. And my family, my parents were both teachers, high school teachers, and all our families, of my uncles and aunts and cousins, it seems like everybody is an educator. There were some of my uncles who were famous theologians of the evangelical church in Latin America. This was a very huge role model for me to be sort of a scholarly and teacher. And even though I didn't really go for education when I was out of high school, I actually got a BA in psychology first.
Mhm.
But I don't think I could ever contemplate the idea of doing anything with my body because this family was so, it nurtured that in all of us. And it
Were
was,
you Catholic?
no, this was an evangelical family.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, my grandfather was one of the pioneer evangelical preachers in Ecuador
Oh.
way back. And so we also had that very, very strong evangelical upbringing that was a lot about, a lot of talk of salvation, but also a lot of disregard of the body, right?
Sure.
And
Yeah. And pleasure.
and pleasure
Mhm.
and bodily manifestations, so like dancing, right? So
Mhm.
I really didn't grow up dancing, and this was strange because I'm from Ecuador, and in Ecuador, like in many Latin American countries, people dance culturally.
Mm. Sure.
They have dance parties and they dance salsa or merengue or whatever. And I didn't grow up with any of that. I wasn't allowed to go to parties. I mean, it was that whole, very, very um, closed upbringing. So, but I wanted to. I was dying to dance since I was little. I actually, there's a photo of me which I'm gonna share with you so that
Sure.
the all these listeners can see it. When I was like 5 years old, and I'm actually dancing wearing a poncho. I'm actually dancing around my parents' coffee table, the living room coffee table. And I have a little booklet with me. I'm holding this book, which I was reading. And I was like 5 years old. I didn't know how to read it. But this was a book that my parents used to work in literacy campaigns.
Mhm.
My mom was working in a literacy campaign to teach people how to read and write. And so it was, it had little drawings and the words. So I was kind of teaching myself how to read with this little book. But then this music started, and then I started dancing around, and I was so happy. And this picture looks so happy. And I think it's a kind of a good symbolism of me at 5 years old wanting to dance and read at the same time, like doing both things at the same time. But that's not really what I did, right? When I grew up, I was a very good student. I was, the best student. I was, I had gold medals for
You were
studying.
the valedictorian of your high school.
I was the valedictorian in my high school. I was always, always such a good student. I was terrible at physical education, though. I was terrible. I would fall flat on my face every time we tried to do any, and they made us do really ridiculous things like, like I don't even know, gymnastics, like when you are like 8 years old and you don't know anything. And I would just fall. I couldn't do cartwheels. I couldn't do absolutely anything. I was completely useless. And this was really painful for me because I was so good at any other subject. I got A's in everything, and then I would get like D's in physical education, and it was a source of shame. And for me, because I was a perfectionist, but it was also it was sad because I could tell that whatever had to do with my body was awkward. It was weird. I wore glasses. I didn't think I was pretty. It was all these, like the body was like not nurtured at all. And i I was in that part of my life, I was pretty unhappy. I remember that, that I was ashamed of my body. I would walk like this, like I didn't want people to see me. I didn't want people to see me.
Yeah.
I was hiding a lot, even though I was, I was hiding my body, right?
Sure.
I think I
Yeah.
didn't hide my mind.
Hiding your disembodiment, perhaps.
Yes. So I could shine with my mind, but not with
Mm.
my body. That was
Yeah.
um,
Wow.
a message that I received and I grew up with.
What did it feel like to grow up with that sort of intrinsic desire to dance and to move and to have that and to feel like you're not allowed to tap into that?
I think that I actually, I don't know that I thought a lot about it, but I am pretty sure that I was frustrated. But I am also a person who is very good at hiding things and repressing things.
Mm.
I'm learning that about myself at this age.
Yeah.
As I'm, kind of growing up, and I'm beginning to realize how much I repress, and I am very good at just living happily and not doing something and not fighting it, just being
Like
unhappy.
making
Right.
peace with things. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wasn't like my sisters, like my older sister, she would fight with my dad to go to parties or something. I wouldn't fight. I was like, it's not worth it. I'm not fighting. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not gonna do it. But inside me, it was like I had bottled up so much that it just, I think it showed in my body, and I think later in my older years it has shown even my health, right? The way that I
Sure.
battled emotions like frustration. And I think I danced like, when I was like 19, before I left Ecuador, I danced in a party. When I left Ecuador, I was 20. And my sister made a farewell party for me, and we danced salsa. And I didn't even know how to dance. I felt like so awkward because everybody knows how to dance, and I didn't. And I danced like, oh my God, like liberation, like, oh my God, this is amazing. This was the first time that I actually felt like,
How old were you? You were high school, like end of graduation?
yeah, no, this was after high school. I had been 3 years in university. And
Wow.
so that I was 20 when
But
I,
that was the first time you really danced when you were
yeah,
20. Wow. That's amazing.
exactly. It's in a country where everybody dances. It's just ridiculous.
It's funny because my dad was a Methodist minister. I think we talked about, I don't know if we talked about that in our call before. And um, he wasn't, I always say like, he wasn't like the dad in Footloose. If you ever saw that movie Footloose, like the dad in Footloose, he was also a preacher, but he wouldn't let the kids dance. Like he was very much like, you can't dance, right? Like the dancing is not allowed. And my dad wasn't anti-dancing, but he had grown up in Texas as a Baptist, and there was a lot of anti-dancing, really like anti-joy, anti-pleasure. Um, and so I understand like that ancestry comes through me too. Like I feel very uncomfortable dancing at places, but more because he always gave us this message that like people were watching us,
Yeah.
right? Like everybody's watching, like you're the minister's kids, like everybody's watching. And so this sort of strange, like feeling like I was in a fishbowl made me not want to do things, because there was a message of like, don't humiliate yourself, don't embarrass yourself, don't shame the family. And I often felt like, well, I don't know how to dance and I'm not confident like that. And I'm not comfortable in my body. So I better not do it because I'm just going to be shameful of myself as I move. And it's amazing how long that stuck in my body, really.
Yeah, oh, it takes forever. It takes you so much to untrain your body to begin to open up, right? I mean, in my older years, I had to train my body to fight those messages. And my parents didn't really say don't dance, but it was also like that, like you have to be a good girl. A good girl is, she behaves well, she doesn't move too much, she doesn't show her legs, she doesn't show her body, she doesn't wear mini skirts, she doesn't wear makeup. She is all about not showing the body, right? And
Right.
you can shine with your mind. Of course, you have to be a good Christian and all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it took a lot of retraining later in my years, and I'm still fighting with it. I
Mm.
know that I still fight with, you know, sometimes the first thing that I feel about, it when I go to a place, and even when people are dancing, even though I've danced so many years, I'm like, God, no, I don't want anybody to see me.
Yeah, but being seen is its own thing beyond dancing in public, right?
Yeah,
Like there's a fear of dancing it, but I think for a lot of my friends who dance, they can really inhabit themselves and almost like escape into the dancing. And
yeah.
that's really different than showing up and being aware of being seen.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. There is a spiritual dimension to dancing that I discovered later in life, which is amazing. And there is and of course, it happens through the body. But there is also as I have been performing salsa, there is also here I am, come and watch me, and I'm wearing rhinestones. And, you know,
Yes.
there is,
There's really a tapping into a certain kind of confidence that's just part of the deal if you're going to dance salsa, I would imagine.
yeah, yeah. But that's kind of later in the story. So
Yeah.
in Ecuador, no, never. I danced probably once or twice, and with a lot of pleasure, but kind of hidden from my parents, and with the understanding that I was doing something wrong.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then what happened? Like how did you step into feeling empowered enough to start dancing? My understanding is your first dancing really was West African dance, right?
Yes,
Hmm.
yes. So when I was a graduate student in Arizona, I went to the University of Arizona for my master's and my PhD. And I always wanted to dance. You see, that's the thing. And then I saw that there were these teachers that taught like samba dancing from Brazil and other Afro-Brazilian dances. And then I actually wanted to learn samba, and I went to a teacher who I had seen perform in a street festival performing samba. And when I went to the class, she said, "Oh, we're not teaching the samba this season, but we're
Oh,
teaching West African. So you want it?" And I was like, Okay. So I started taking West African classes with her. Barbia Williams was her name, and then I took West African dancing with a wonderful African American teacher named Eno Washington in Tucson. I took classes with him for a long time, and then I discovered, wow, it wasn't even just discovering dance, because West African dance is a dance that you do to live drumming. You do to the djembe and
I
the.
used to do it a little bit. And
You
yeah,
did?
I know this is so weird. We have all these funny overlaps. Yeah, I lived in Burlington, Vermont for a long time. And when I lived there, strangely enough, Burlington, Vermont has a pretty active, or at least they did 25 years ago, I should say. I don't know what's true now, but back then there was a pretty active West African dance community. Strangely enough, there was a woman named Padma who was a dancer, and she got very interested in West African dance, and she started something called J. Kalu, which was a West African dance company. And we would, I was never in the company because I really could not dance that well, but I went with my friends and we would go on Tuesday and Thursday nights, and it was amazing. It was really amazing. And it was so challenging because it was challenging just from choreography standpoint as
Mhm.
a white girl, no rhythm, but also it was really challenging, like you said, because it asks of a lot of expression. And as a person who was taught like people are watching, like sort of unleashed expression was not my history. So it was really confronting for me to be asked. And at the end, they'd like have a circle, and then like everybody, one by one, people would go in this circle, and I'm like, this is my worst nightmare, to be like by myself in front of these people. Ugh, but it's very good for your confidence.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's exactly what I did, and it was challenging. I mean, West African dances are challenging because they are also polyrhythmic dances. So you are dancing to the different rhythms, and your different parts of your body are responding to the different drums. So your torso is doing one thing, your head is doing another, your feet are doing another. It's very challenging, and that the aesthetic of African dance is just amazing.
It's
Uh,
amazing.
West African. So we did mainly Guinea, Mali, and
Mm,
Senegal dances.
yeah, sure.
And
We
then
probably know some of the same ones. You
yeah,
you probably can just do them better.
well, I don't do them as much now, but yeah. So I started doing it, and I realized that I loved it. And I think it had to be West African with the live drums, because the live drums get you out
Yeah,
of
that's
yourself.
right.
They make you do it, even if you have a wall of a body that doesn't know how to do
Yeah.
it. I just feel these drums, and I would just start like, I don't, I would move. And then I took classes for a long time, and then I joined the Washington's dance company and another dance company in Tucson, and I would practice. Then it became like it was my hobby, but with my hobbies, I'm also very dedicated. So I would practice for hours and hours and hours. And the other day, I just saw a video of myself dancing West African dances when I was 27 years old in
Wow,
Tucson.
fun.
Oh my God. I was,
That
I
would
mean,
be fun to throw in the resource file for the listeners.
yeah, I should do it. I have to put it, it's on in VHS, so I have to put it in the make it digital. But yeah, so I think that the drums helped me come out of my shell, right?
Yeah.
And I was still not very comfortable with being seen. But yes, we did have to do the solos in the group. And in the solos, once you do it, and once the drums, I would be in a conversation with the drums, because that's what happens with West African dance. So that would, I couldn't think, to stop myself. I just didn't.
Yeah, it's
So
almost
that,
like the drums beat you out of your own head,
yes,
right? But
yes.
I think it's because that heartbeat, I mean, researchers know, like they know music is intrinsic in us, and like the rhythm of drums really is our heartbeat. And children all over the world, no matter where in the world they are, when they hear drum beats, kids begin to move. Every kid, everywhere, all the kids, all the places, like it's very much in our nature and like in our being.
Yeah, and these dances, I mean, those and then African-based dances that are done in Latin America, like salsa, which of course a lot of people don't really know that is actually, it has such a huge African base. But those dances from Cuba, Puerto Rico that are part of salsa are all healing dances. They really are. These
Oh,
drumming dances are, they really. within the context where they come from, some of them are about different things, but they do operate as a healing thing. And I think that to me, West African was a healing dance, a way of getting me into my body.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Do you
mean,
think that when hindsight, like, do you think when you look back, do you think if you tried to do modern dance or jazz or even salsa at the time, do you think you needed the West African dance to it? Like, there was something for me about West African that you can't not embody it if you're
yeah,
there, right? Because it won't let you
yeah.
almost. But I feel like I could probably not salsa it, maybe.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and I never thought about it this way until you're telling me this. But I think it makes a lot of sense that if it had been ballet or modern dance, so I would have been like, yeah, that's it, because I was so bad at anything with the body.
Well, because you would have been right back in your head. Your head would have been right because those dances feel like they start at the head, kind of.
Yeah, so yeah, and I think you're right. Even salsa, the way that we do salsa here in the studios, and and the way that I've been doing salsa here is also training. It has been a lot of work. It has helped me a lot of to come out of my fears. But I don't think I would have started if I had started, because also, well, salsa, we don't dance to live music a lot. When we dance to
Right.
live music, is great, but sometimes I had missed the live drumming. I
Yeah.
can get into salsa when I hear really good salsa music. I can get those drums in my
You
body.
just gotta like go down to Miami for the weekend or something.
Right. Well, I mean, I can do it now with recorded music, but that's because I've been doing it for so long. But
Sure.
I think,
But
yeah.
it's not the same. Dancing to live music's not the same as, it's like being at a concert versus listening to it on the radio, it's not the same.
So yeah, I think that the West African with the live drumming was a huge, important thing that got me into dancing. That probably, if it wasn't like that, it wouldn't have happened.
At what point in the dancing did you kind of realize how long you had denied that dream of dancing in yourself?
Oh, I think that then when I was, maybe I've done West African dance for like 4 years, and while I was in Arizona, I was training really hard to be in these companies and do like nice performances. I began to realize, oh my God, I love this. And I was thinking, oh my God, now I want to be a dancer. This is what I was thinking. Why am I going for a PhD in history? When all I want to do is dance. I
Yeah.
mean, this is what I was
But
thinking.
that's so many. I mean, that's exactly why I thought it'd be great to talk about this because I feel like so many people live in that intersection of like what I should do, what would make sense, what would pay the mortgage, what would make my parents happy, what would the culture respond well to, what seems like an adult appropriate, responsible thing to do.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, I just felt like by then I was 28 and I was like, well, it's too late. It's too late for me to start becoming a dancer. I had a lot of lack of confidence that, well, at 28 now I'm going to try to become a dancer. And I've never been that flexible, and I had still a lot of lack of confidence in my body. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not going to be a great dancer anyway, so I should have a job that pays the bills. And since I'm pretty good with my mind, so
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm I really like ideas. I like thinking. I like theorizing.
Yeah.
So I could do well actually anything. I was like, oh, anthropology, literature, history. Um, it was not. I mean, I had to dedicate myself really hard for it, but I could do it. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I just decided to go for
But it also
something.
seems to me, I mean, and like we've talked now twice, so I know you so well, clearly. But my experience of you is that you are a person who is divided and integrated now. That the intellectual part of you is not something that you. It's just as important as the dancing. Like I think that part of you is just as significant to who you are
Yeah.
as the dancing. And without either of them, you probably wouldn't be you.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, yeah. I think that at that moment it was just like, oh my God, all I want to do is dance because it's so wonderful. But yeah, I mean that part of me and that tradition that I grew up with, that I nurtured. I mean, I am actually pretty good. I mean, I I have worked so hard, like even for example, writing in English, I published
Mm,
work in English. That took me a lot of work to be able
I
to
believe that.
write academically in English. But I did it, and I kind of, I've been able to be successful at that. And so I have a good mind for connecting things, and I like thinking. I really like thinking.
Yeah, me too. I like to think and connect the dots. And yeah, I know. I'm not as interested in the doing as I am the thinking sometimes.
Yeah,
I know. I love to just sit there and think. I remember watching something not that long ago where oh, what's it? Bill Gates like spends a week a year. He just goes off and spends a week like thinking. He sits and he reads a bunch of stuff and he thinks. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. Like thinking is its own thing.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So yeah, I think that it is. It's just that I've always had to do them separately, right? I have
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
secret life as a dancer and my open public life as a history student, or then later a professor. So for a long time it was separate. I mean, I
Yeah.
was glad that I could do both,
Hmm.
but I also didn't like to hide, because I felt like, like in the academic world, maybe people wouldn't understand that I spend so much time dancing, or that they would think I'm not a serious
Right.
PhD student because I dance so much, or they would think I'm not a serious professor because I dedicate a lot of time to dancing. So I always try to not tell anyone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. But it's interesting because I think we pay a price when we deny ourselves who we are or the completeness of who we are, then
yeah,
we sort of compartmentalize ourselves, right? And then wherever we show up, we're not really fully ourselves.
right.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. I felt like that for many years. That was happening with my career. I could write, and I could publish a book and an articles, and I could teach, but I would always feel like I was not fully myself in my job as a history professor, or even in the teaching. I
Right.
didn't think I was, I don't know. I don't know how my students saw me, but I always felt myself to be like not a complete teacher.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
What was your parents' experience? Like what was your family's experience when you started to dance?
So my parents they were very excited about me like doing the West African dance. Um, I think that it changed as I grew older, and that, they also, and as they got older, they
Mm.
started to kind of, becoming more loose about it. And it might be also that I might have imagined the
Sure.
power as a lot bigger than it really was, right?
Yeah. That's such a great point.
I had internalized and my dad was somebody who was very fearful of anything. He was fearful of us. I didn't do skating, like I didn't know how to ride a bicycle. I didn't do the slide in the park. I didn't do anything. So my dad was not just afraid of dancing. He was afraid of the body. He was afraid
Ah.
that we would fall and break our knees and
Mm.
all of that. So as I grew older, and I kind of put the separation from my dad's fears and my own,
Yeah.
and I started dancing, I think that they were happy. As once I started dancing salsa, which is what I did, and I ended up doing competitions and crazy things with rhinestones in my body and makeup and
Yeah.
wigs and um, when I did that, my mother had already become ill with Alzheimer's,
Mm.
so she didn't really get to see that.
Sorry.
But my dad did get to see, and I tried not to share the more tight-fitting costumes and the more. But once he was going through my photos in my iPhone, and he saw this costume of me like showing the midriff, and I was like, "Oh my god, my dad!" So I knew he was happy, but I think he was happy that I was doing something that made me happy.
Yeah.
But I don't think that he liked that all that makeup, rhinestone, body showing
Yeah.
situation, right?
Sure.
3-inch heels, things like that.
Sure. It's so impressive to me you can dance in 3-inch heels.
Barely. It was a struggle. It was really hard.
Yeah. I'm sorry about your mom. My dad had Alzheimer's too. That's not an easy journey.
Oh, yeah, I'm
Mm.
sorry. It's
Yeah,
very difficult.
it is
It is very
difficult.
difficult.
Was she in Ecuador for all of that?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so my mom, she actually passed away in March
Oh, I'm
of
sorry.
2020 when the COVID, right around the
Oh,
time COVID hit. So yeah, no, she came, they came to visit, when my mom was okay. And um, I think that I even took them to a West African dance class. I did take them to
so
see
great.
it and everything when I was in Arizona. They've always been, I was very close to them as I got older. I didn't break with my parents. I didn't hate them.
Sure.
I was very, very close, and I visited them every year religiously, sometimes twice a year. Then when my
Mhm.
mom got sick, like 4 times a year.
Yeah.
So that's actually a good thing also, that even though I knew that the upbringing I got kept me from something, I didn't resent them anymore. At some point, I was like, well, that was their journey. My journey has been to try to find my integration. So
Yeah.
um, and I would send pictures to my dad of me, dancing in the company and everything. So I even made videos of him, of me in my studio, and showing him, because I knew that as he got older, he knew that it was so important to me.
Mm. So
Yeah.
interesting. I feel like there's so many people in the world, and I've experienced myself, like people want to give themselves permission to express their own uniqueness, right? Like it doesn't matter. Like a friend of mine was texting me yesterday and saying like she's learning French right now, and that she found a French teacher, and it reminded like she can still remember a lot of things from high school, and like that was just having being able to remember a few phrases from high school was like it was just really enlightening for her and like really inspiring to want to keep pursuing learning French. And I think whether it's like a different language, whether it's crocheting, and like it could be shuffleboarding, like it really doesn't matter what the thing is. But when you have a calling in your heart or in your body that wants to be expressed and we shut it down, it's such a like it makes me so sad that we still do that in 2021,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, yeah, it's because it's like a part of you is dying, or perhaps not dying, but it's somewhere in your body it goes, and it can create, health issues. I'm
Yeah.
learning that
How
now.
how do you think it changed you? Like when you started to really giving yourself permission to dance and you started incorporating it more as a legitimate hobby in your life, how did you feel like you changed because of allowing that in?
Oh my God, it changed a lot. I mean, I am, especially when I started training with salsa, the Sal City company in Cleveland. That was the biggest change, because that's when I started training for salsa, not just to, perform, but also to do competitions and do things that I had never done. And we had to do tricks and, things that, and for somebody who I was so afraid of everything, I had to confront my fears. I
Yeah.
had to confront my fears head on, my fears of being seen, my fears of doing, doing splits, my fears that my body is not good enough, um, that if we did an air trick that I was gonna fall or something. And I was always very fearful. And my teacher used to tell me, "You're so afraid. What are you afraid of?" And he
Yeah,
really,
but that sounds ingrained. I mean, it sounds like that was part of your family culture, fear.
yeah. So I feel like by doing all of that, I mean, doing the training at the salsa company was, I feel like, psychotherapy.
Mm,
Every single training was psychotherapy, and I actually was doing psychotherapy at the same time.
yeah.
Uh, but just the training was, confronting the fears, and facing them, and becoming strong, like actually empowering myself. And I know that some people would, and in fact, a friend of mine told me that it was, what sort of message do you think you're sending when you're wearing rhinestones and 3-inch heels, and you're a professor, and what message does this send to women? And I was like, as a woman who has been ashamed of my body,
Mm,
has been for all my life asking people, don't see me because
right.
I'm so ugly
Mm,
and my body is so ugly, to say, hey, you know what? I kick ass.
that's right. Yes.
I'm strong. I have a beautiful body. I'm beautiful. I can dance. And you know what? I don't care if you watch me. I don't care if you do
That's it.
or you don't. but here I am in the world, me with my mind and my body.
Yeah.
This was really powerful. And I
That's
feel
really
like,
moving. It's really moving. As a woman, I mean, I'm sure that's not just a woman thing, but that's really moving.
well, it is a woman thing because we're
Mm,
taught all these messages,
right.
women and little girls in particular. We are, in my generation, we're taught to hide everything, to, not appear in the world, to not be anything. And then when you find, I mean, intellectually and professionally, I could do it, but I had to hide my body. So with the salsa dance, it helped me to, you know, become more empowered, even,
Yes.
you know, just so that I'm not feeling like I'm this mousy person who is afraid of what people are going to say. And now I'm like, I don't care what people say.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And I also felt that it gave me a lot of confidence, a lot of strength, and not just to dance. I mean, it would feel like
Right.
just like just to go and do a stupid show. No, um, when my father died, because my father died also, both of my
I'm
parents died
so sorry.
within 11 months of each other. So he died in May of 2019,
Oh, he died before your mom.
before my
Oh,
mom.
I'm
And he
sorry.
had been sick for a long time. He had kidney failure.
Mhm.
Um, but when he died, it was devastating, right? It was devastating.
Yeah.
Um, and having to face my father's dying and then having to go to Ecuador and spending 3 months with my one sister, emptying our home
Mm.
and trying to place my mom in a place where she could be taken care of because her Alzheimer's was very advanced. All of that, it was so difficult. It was such a difficult time. I couldn't dance at that time. I couldn't dance. I was mourning. I couldn't
Mm.
even dance. It was the first time that I couldn't dance for a long time. But I had an inner strength that I don't think I would have had if I hadn't danced.
Mm.
If I hadn't trained salsa for so hard for doing shows and things like that, I
Mhm.
don't think I would have made it. I don't think I would have made it in this COVID pandemic without the strength that I got from training salsa. I really do. So I mean, I'm pretty hardworking and all of that, but emotionally, I feel like salsa helped me become stronger. So
Yeah.
not just in my body, but emotionally, and so yeah, it's just being amazing.
I
It's been
love
a
that.
good
I
journey.
think it's like there's so many paths to courage. Like we think about cultivating courage. I've been thinking a lot about this lately. I've been thinking so much about power structures and women and the intersection of our responsibility to stand for other women in moments of disempowerment, and like what real empowerment for us looks like, or for me looks like. And I feel like it's such an important thing to remember that the path to courage and empowerment, sometimes it comes in really strange ways. Like sometimes it comes as an inkling to take a crochet class or a watercolor class, or to start like learning to fish or something, like things that don't seem like they have anything to do with the end result that you might be wanting, or the part of yourself that you want to be developing. But something knows that if we can just get into if we can just say yes to dance, or say yes to watercolor, or say yes to getting the dog, or say yes to whatever that small desire is in us, that like that thing itself, our openness to it might just be the exact thing that lets us step into the courage that we wouldn't if we were in a container that didn't come with our heart's calling attached to it.
Right. Yeah, no, I think I agree. When I started taking the salsa, when I joined the salsa company here in Cleveland, I didn't really have any ideas of what was gonna happen, right? And I mean I knew that I wasn't really sure that I wanted to be a performer, but I wanted to train salsa like seriously. That's why I joined the
Yeah.
company. But as I did that, I discovered so much about myself. But at first, I didn't have any idea that this was going to be the journey I was getting into, right?
Yeah.
I just thought I want to, I was alone a lot. I didn't want to, I wanted to do an interesting hobby, and I've always wanted to dance. So it was not at all with a sort of life-changing idea in my head, but it has been a life-changing.
Yeah.
And now, of course, as I as I look back, I see that there has been a way in which I've been pursuing dancing, always in a different way. So it's part of my path. But when I took the first salsa classes, I was just, I actually, the reason why I started taking salsa was because I didn't know how to dance partner work.
Oh, I
I
wouldn't
only
know how to do that either.
I knew how to dance only on my own with
Mhm.
West African dance. And so at some point I was like, it would be nice to learn how to dance with somebody else, to actually be in a dialogue where somebody leads
Mm.
and somebody follows. And that's why I ended up taking salsa, because I wanted to learn how to dance with others in community. I mean, in partner work, because you
Yeah,
dance in West Africa, you dance in community, but with a
sure.
big community. I
Right.
wanted to learn partner dancing.
How much did partner dancing uh influence your experience of relationship?
Oh, well, uh, I think the reason why I wanted to learn partner dancing was because I'm divorced, so I had
Mhm.
been
Me
divorced
too.
for a few years, and I felt that I didn't know how to relate very well with people.
Yeah.
So that maybe learning how to do partner work would be something that would, help me to relate with people. And I mean, something interesting happened, because I started salsa because I wanted to learn partner work and dance with another, just one partner. But then as I got into the salsa and in the company, I learned that, of course, salsa, you can dance on your own also. And you can do these
Oh.
routines that are called shines routines, in which
Oh.
you dance on your own or with with another a group of people, but you are not doing partner work. And
Mm.
I found that I actually wanted to do the alone salsa again, that I'm a little bit of a loner in that way, that I love partner dancing. I love dancing to a great music with a great partner. And I think I'm pretty good partner dancer, but oh, my heart is really happy when I dance on my own. So
Yeah. Well, there's a freedom of expression when you're on your own, I would imagine, that's really different than being in the dynamic and in the dialogue with another person, right? It's sort of like it's nice to have time with your person at the end of the day, but it's also nice to have an alone day,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, and dancing partner work is wonderful, because you get into this improvisational style. Well, especially when the partner lets you improvise, because
Ah.
normally they don't. Well, it depends. Some partners improvise, some don't. But when you can get into this improvisational thing, you are creating like a choreography in
Yeah.
the moment, in without words, and it's addictive. It's just wonderful. It gives you so much joy. And I was kind of addicted to that when I started salsa, and I was going to the club a lot. And but then after a while, I wanted to cultivate salsa as an art form for me, and so I started training on my own. And eventually, I did a solo, which I competed with at the World Salsa Summit, and that was one of the most amazing experiences of my life, to dance on my own, completely on my own, in front of
Oh,
judges.
yeah.
I didn't care what happened.
I want to be like, "Atta girl."
Yeah, and to hit, to get into the music, to get into the zone, all of that, athletes speak about, I had never really experienced until I did that. So salsa has given me the joy of continuing, oh my God, developing myself as a dancer on my own,
Mm.
but also a partner dancer. And
Yeah.
the interaction in partner dancing is immediate, and it can be magical.
I could imagine for myself that there would because I've done so many things by myself and on my own, that the trust, like trusting the other person in the dance, that there'd be so many subtle lessons to learn in partner dance
Yeah.
that's different, like being a single mom, being divorced, like doing a lot of things on my own. I could imagine there'd be a lot of psychology behind partner dance.
Yeah, yeah, and there are, some people that talk about the roles that are gender roles, because normally men lead and women follow, and whether that is oppressive to women. I've taught a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
I taught a salsa class, so I've kind of read a lot about it. But I found that partner dancing as a follower even following these traditional gender roles is still empowering, because
Mm,
you are not just you are creating with somebody, and maybe the other person is the lead and you're the follow, but there is a lot of creativity in what the follow does.
mm,
And it takes, I mean, you have to respond in the split seconds to what the other person is doing. And um yeah, so it can be wonderful, but yeah, part of me was wanting that, but part of me enjoys the idea of being a dancer fully on my own.
yeah,
So now that my salsa company is, the performing group is not really performing anymore, so I've been trying to find other ways of continuing with this, and again, this is COVID, right, hitting and changing
sure.
things. So now I'm kind of exploring how to create dialogues of movement in my own dancing on my own.
Mm,
Dialogues between West African dance, salsa, some of the other Afro-Cuban dances, even Brazilian stuff,
yeah.
putting them all together in something that is just my own dance.
How
So that's what I'm
beautiful.
doing now.
And then will you do a solo show?
With that, I don't know if I'll do it solo, but I mean, I did a solo with my salsa. I'm maybe salsa is my love. Salsa is my love, of all the dances. I mean, I love all of them, but salsa is my love. So I don't think I'll leave it. I just have to figure out how to keep doing it.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit. In 2019, you really sort of officially integrated your dancing work with your history work. Can you speak about that when you made that decision?
Yeah, so I was in my salsa company, Salsirio of Angels. My dance teacher, whose name is Lenin Guerrero, he's from Mexico. He's a wonderful dancer and a national champion of salsa in Mexico. He was one of the unusual salsa teachers who actually teach the history of salsa when he teaches the dancing part.
Mm,
So he had this approach, which was teaching us about the Afro-Cuban dances and where they come from, how they are rooted in the history of slavery in Cuba, how they are rooted in the history of um, racism in Cuba, right? How do these dances come to the United States? Where does the mambo come from? What, that sort of thing. So when I was learning salsa with him, I was learning a lot of history, and I'm a historian. So I was very, very excited about everything I was learning and the embodied way in which I was learning salsa and salsa history with him. So at the University of Akron, we had a series of changes that happened since 2018, which forced me to stop doing my work the way I did. We it's kind of a long story, but we lost our graduate programs. I couldn't teach graduate students anymore. And then I was like, oh, I need to reinvent myself as a
mm.
teacher,
Oh,
and focus more on my undergraduate teaching. And how am I going to make my classes more interesting? How do I regain my love for teaching in a context that was difficult?
yeah.
And I thought, oh, why not do a salsa history class in which I could be the historian, of course, and teach the history. And then, but we would have the salsa part that
So
would be
cool.
that, so that the students would actually learn the history of salsa through dancing,
Yeah.
not just through thinking, but through dancing. So I partnered up with him, with Lenin Guerrero, my teacher, and it was amazing. It was the most exciting teaching experience I've ever had. We did an interdisciplinary course called Salsa History in Motion, and it was an experiment, but it was wonderful. So we would have um, met twice a week. In the first day, the students would met with me leading, and we would read and discuss and do debates and analyze and learn about the history of slavery in Cuba. Where do these dances come from? All the way going to the emergence of salsa in New York City in the 60s and 70s. And then on the other day, we would go to the dance studio, and then we would do all the movements that went along with the time period that
That's
we were
so
discussing.
cool.
And then at the end, we did a performance. So all the students had to learn a routine,
Mhm.
which we performed at the University of Akron. And we performed in Cleveland as well. And it was amazing. I mean, the most amazing experience. And yeah, the students loved the class. It was really hard. It was hard work for them because they did have to do everything. They had to write, they had to read, they had to analyze, they had to write blogs, and they had to learn choreography. And they had
But
to,
so did you.
and I did. I mean, we killed ourselves in that class. I mean, we worked so hard. And it was the first time that I taught, students dancing. I helped train them for the performance. So I would be teaching with my body,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And communicating with my students in a different way. And that was a beautiful gift that I think has also changed me as a teacher, because I feel like now I'm more open,
Yeah.
more open to talk about myself and about my experience and my feelings, and cry in class if I have to, and
Yeah. Sure.
not be that remote history professor, right? But
Yeah.
actually a human being.
Mm.
So I think it changed me a lot. And that class was just fabulous. It
I
was,
feel really excited for you that you got to do that, just in hearing the story and knowing how long your heart wanted to integrate those two things. It feels like a really beautiful moment in time of the synergy, or like a moment of real integration where like all of who you are got to come together in one moment and teach and dance and be seen for who you are in this integrated, for your mind and your body, for your skills, for your femininity and your masculinity, right? For the strength and the grace.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I feel like I didn't have to hide anymore. Like I actually invited all my colleagues to our performance, and they
Wow.
all came, and it was just so amazing that they were so very supportive, and they all came. And I mean, at the end of the performance, some of them told me, "My God, I didn't know that this is what you were doing." Right? Because I don't really know what they thought I was doing when I told them I was teaching salsa history. I thought they were like, oh, oh yeah, they are having fun, they are dancing, and
Mm,
we did have a lot of fun. But it
sure.
was so much more than having fun.
Yeah.
Having fun was just the icing in the cake, right? Everything that the students could learn about Latin American history, about these difficult histories, about the resistance, the resilience of people who use dance to express themselves and learn it through their bodies,
Yeah.
and then perform and have community and joy together. It was, and I was also healing from my father's death at that
Sure.
moment. So it was a lot of wow. um, I didn't know that it was possible to have a teaching experience that would be so holistic,
Yeah.
for lack
But
of
so
word.
beautiful for the students who got to participate in that with you. Because isn't that, I mean, my youngest is about to go off to college. Um, and that's what I want for him. Like, I want him to go and have experiences like that in whatever interest he's interested in, like, I don't want him to just sit there and have to regurgitate some fact. I want him to live the experience. I want him to heal his own life through his expression, you know?
Yeah,
I want him to integrate in himself these different parts of himself. I
yeah,
think that's why we send our kids to college.
yeah, and it is challenging because the students also come with already, like me at the age of 18, was already had internalized all these messages.
Sure.
So a lot of the students, some of the students in the class had never danced or were paralyzed about being asked to do something with their bodies,
Right.
right? So to put them in a context, they were amazing because they took the plunge, right? They trusted that this was going to be a good experience for them,
Mm,
and they went with me, and they went
yeah.
with me all in the whole thing. They were just wonderful. But it was a special group. I think a lot of other students
Mm,
might feel a little bit nervous about being challenged in that way. So,
yeah.
but I think it
But
was,
when you're challenged by somebody who's had that same experience, right? Like you yourself had been challenged by the same questions, right? And to stand in the presence, to be asked to do something by someone who has really lived that themselves, it makes it so much more accessible, I think.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, and that was the part of, that and many other parts of the class were wonderful in that I got to be a teacher that I could share those things about me, right?
Yeah.
That in the past I never did, right? I mean, I have been a very limited teacher myself, perhaps, but also, well, I mean, you teach in a classroom with a podium, you are the
Sure.
authority, you are supposed to know everything, right?
Mm,
You have an auditorium of 200 students, and how do you become human in that
right.
context? So,
And what happens when we're not human in those spaces? Right? Like that's the thing I wonder is like, well, we're not human because when we don't give ourselves permission for our own humanity, how do we then give it to anybody else? And in those moments, like all those children, college age children, they really like who more needs to be reminded of their humanity?
right. So yeah, all of this, yeah, how much I have learned because of dancing, and it has changed me. And now I'm gonna go and teach the salsa history in motion class in Paris on my own. So
Yeah,
that's
that's so
new.
exciting. At the Sorbonne on the last.
Not a Sorbonne, and they invited me to do that. That
That's
was the other
amazing.
thing that I never thought that. I applied for the position. I had to propose a series of courses. So I proposed, traditional courses like history of gender in Latin America, or um, mostly because I teach a lot of gender history and
Sure.
sexuality, history of sexuality, things like that. And I say, well, I could also teach salsa history in motion if you wanted to. And they wanted it. I'm like, oh my
So
God,
great.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
But
So
why wouldn't they want what you want?
yeah.
You
So
know?
I am very excited about that.
What do you think, Martha, for people who are listening who are feeling like they have a desire for whether it's a hobby or a different way of being, but like there's something calling them that they're not allowing themselves. Like what advice or suggestions do you have for people who've not stepped into embodying the thing that they're wanting?
What message? I think that the one of the messages would be to the idea maybe taking baby steps. So perhaps, like I wanted to be a dancer when I was 27, and I felt that, oh, that is too late now, I'm not done. But I didn't abandon that dream. I didn't become a professional dancer, but I always remain looking for that. I always look for the opportunity to dance wherever I lived. And I've lived in
Mm,
many places, and I always look for that opportunity. So even just putting yourself out of your comfort zone in a little way
mhm.
at the beginning might be something that would open doors.
Right.
And when you do that, you might begin to see things that you don't see if you don't, right? If you don't put yourself out of your comfort zone. So going to those first initial dance classes in here in Cleveland, or even when I was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, I ended up dancing with the West African Dance Company there. But when I went there and I went the first class, I was so intimidated. Um, but I just don't know. I think like I persevered and like I want to
Mm.
keep going. And then eventually the teacher is like, "Oh, you should be in my company." And I was like, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, I think being able to allow yourself to be a beginner as
yeah,
a middle age, that can be a hard thing to do, right?
yeah,
Especially because the first class is like it's not like it's 2 weeks later, you're a perfect African dance teach.
no,
It's like these things they don't come quick necessarily. And
yeah.
there's that the fortitude, like you said, the perseverance of staying with the thing, even though it's really hard.
Yeah, yeah, I'm persevering, and really definitely I think that there is an element of putting yourself out of your comfort zone, because even if it's something that you loved always, but you've never done it, it's gonna feel uncomfortable.
That's
And
right.
with dancing, it kind of always feels uncomfortable because you always want to learn more and make it better.
Yeah.
So, but I think that would be one of the things that um, I would say. And try to face your fears. I don't know, it's maybe cliche, but it's fear that keeps us, holds us back. And I don't know, I feel like also as I get older, I'm a little bit like, what, I don't care anymore. I'm just gonna do what I want.
Yeah.
And we don't get to be like that when we are younger. We care so much about what people would say, and at some point it's like, you just let go of all of that.
I
And
think that's so true. And I would imagine my dad died 10 years ago. So I think there's also a permission, there's a freedom when you lose your parent or a parent, at least for me, like what my dad thought of things just doesn't matter anymore. I mean, it just didn't matter anymore because he
yeah,
wasn't here anymore. Like there's a certain amount of like when the person has physically left the planet, there is something where you have to ask yourself like, well, what of the psychology of where I grew up do I want to continue? What of that do I want to let that not let me dance? Like would you want your dad's belief about dancing or his fear of him moving your body to be a reason for you to not stand at the Sorbonne and teach? What a
right,
shame, right? Like
yeah.
I think we often don't think about what the cost might be to our life if we don't do the thing, if we don't go to the class, if we don't say yes to something.
Yeah. And even using obstacles to kind of motivate you, I think is another way of thinking about this. Because for example, when she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was of course another devastating news for me and my sisters. But one of the things that motivated me to do was to go and start dancing. And that's when I joined the salsa company, because I thought, you know, what if I get Alzheimer's, right? What if I have this gene? And at some point in my life, I'm not going to be able to do this.
Right.
And I don't want to get to be whatever age and get Alzheimer's and be like, oh, I always wanted to be a dancer and I didn't do it. I
Yeah.
said, you know what? Even just to honor my mother's descent into Alzheimer's was a way of me saying, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna work on my body. I'm gonna do what I want. And I'm going to not, who knows what comes next, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
And COVID has taught us that also, right? Who knows what's gonna happen? And so we make the best of the time we have. Um, yeah,
And we know what happens when we don't do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that, my parents' deaths um, in many ways also help empower me.
Mhm.
Um, it in you know, it is kind of interesting to think about how their ideas and the way that they raised me limited me, but their illnesses also helped me to free me.
Yeah.
So they've been a part of my journey all along, and that's even greater, because then when you talk about integration, right?
Right.
It's not that just integrating the body and the mind, but integrating painful histories of
Right.
yourself that you are able to, if you allow yourself.
And
Um,
painful histories of lots of generations, right? Like the intergenerational healing that we're aware of or are conscious of now is really different than before. Like I feel like I hear a lot of people, women in particular, speak about really healing traumas, ancestral traumas, and really trying to be the last in the line to really to be with certain kinds of pain, to be with certain kinds of injustices, to be with certain intolerances that um, yeah, it seems like it's a really powerful moment. And I also want to say, like, I recently had a really unfortunate experience with a man in power. And he pulled me aside for something and I said, "Why are we here alone?" And he said, "'Cause I own the company." And
okay.
this was like 3 days ago, maybe 4 days ago. And I thought, wow, it's 2021.
Yeah.
This is a leadership training. And that's really interesting,
Yeah.
and it's strange in this day and age to still be in this intersection of like what do we do with that?
Exactly.
you know these things are complicated.
Yeah.
It's complicated as women uh to manage these intersections of power and our own self-expression and standing in the truth and embodying our power and taking a stand for things and also not wanting to get dragged into all sorts of drama and craziness. And yeah, it's interesting.
Yes. And yeah, and I agree that, a lot of those things that we're able to deal with in ourselves are, um, I don't know, that we carry for generations. A lot of these, messages about, don't do this, or don't be, don't empower yourself, or we carry them. So at some point, breaking the cycle is very important, and it's very hard to do, but
It's very hard. I watched a group of really powerful, incredibly strong women sit in a Zoom and be physically traumatized by kind of a raging man. And it was interesting both to sit in it and watch how we all manage that, and then to talk about it after and to recognize just how problematic it still is for any woman who's really experienced trauma or had an angry, I don't know, a bully, an angry person of power in their life, or a manipulator, or in anything else. Uh, because it's still challenging to know what to do in those moments and to feel empowered to do it in a culture that doesn't always support doing the right thing.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even as women, to talk about what that means for us and what that feels like in our bodies to not say something, right? To choose to not say something knowing you won't be heard, or right? Or to choose to not say something knowing it won't go anywhere, that there's a futility to your truth.
Mhm.
Um, it's interesting that these things are still alive and well in our experience.
Yeah,
Mm.
they are. Yeah. But I think that then that makes it even more important to find your truth and empower
Mm.
yourself, so that, like I say, even in something like dancing that might not seem to have any useful utility in other than the dance world, no,
Right.
not true. It can really help you strengthen as a person, as
Yeah.
a woman, as a human.
Right.
So
The things in my life that have made me stronger were often not the thing that I went to seek strength, right? Like, you probably didn't go to become a dancer to get stronger or to become more confident, right? It was just a following a heart's desire or a calling or an inkling of sorts. But really, those things that create, it's important to say yes to the things that we don't know where they're going to take us, because those things can give us the courage or teach us the lessons that allow us to sit in a room and say something that we maybe wouldn't have otherwise said. Like, those things allowed me to sit in a room and to say, I'm not going to tolerate that. I won't be talked to like this. I won't be treated like this. That won't work. And those are things that I think, without courageous hobbies, right, without interests that lead to courage, I think a lot of us as women don't have that.
yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Hmm.
but yeah. So I, I would say my message would be to just go for it, and be open to what you learn and how you change. And also, if also you might need to try different things, like sometimes you go to a dance class and it might not be a good fit, but don't give up completely on the idea, right? You can
Right.
persevere until you find the the click, the
Hmm.
thing that clicks.
How long do you think you have to stay with something before you really get a sense of whether or not it's your thing or not?
Oh, oh my God. Well, I don't know.
Like, how
I,
many dance classes do you think you had to go to before you were like, okay, I'm no matter how hard this is, no matter how much of a newbie I am, no matter how much the sort of beginner thing is, like, the joy of this, all the what I get out of this is so worth it, and therefore, like, I'm staying in.
oh God, I don't know. It took me a long time. But I
Mhm.
mean, well, first, when I started taking salsa classes in Cleveland, I took classes with different teachers. And until I found the company that, this teacher that really nurtured this historical aspect as well, and was a very serious teacher, right? Who
Mm.
trained us very, he was like so hard. And I probably, I wanted to have like a very strict teacher because I wanted to really train. But when we were doing the first few months were torture. I mean, it was just like there was nothing good about it. I mean, it was good because I could tell that I was facing my fears, but I wasn't getting a lot of um, gratification,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, but I persevered. I don't know. I'm such a hard worker. I mean, I really am a little bit of a masochist, maybe. But I don't know. After a while, maybe 5 months of torturing myself, I began to glimpse, oh, there is something about this that is wonderful, right? And being able to polish my craft is so worth it, right?
Yeah.
At some point, when I went to one of the first salsa congresses, and I saw people dancing, and I saw what they were doing, I was like, oh my god, oh, I'm going to stick with this because I want to do that, and I want to challenge myself to do that.
Mhm.
So at some point, but it was not immediate. But if I had quit, in the first 3 months, then nothing would have happened, right? So I just kept going, and it was painful, and my feet hurt, and my knees hurt, and I was, it was hard. It was
Yeah.
really hard. But yeah, at some point later on, and once we started performing with the company, and it was so wonderful to have that after
Yeah.
performance, community moment, then it was the more gratifying. Yeah.
So cool. That's so cool. I'm so excited that you're going to teach this at the Sorbonne. And I hope that you'll make it available online one day, because I can imagine how many people would love to take that course.
Oh yeah, I know. I should think about it. But I have some of the documentaries that I'm gonna share.
Yes.
That
Perfect.
of the documentaries of the salsa history in motion class that I taught at Akron, because it was a team of 3 different disciplines that put that class together, and so we had a video production class, and students created documentaries of that experience. So that one
So
is
cool.
all on my YouTube channel.
Yeah. Great.
So that I mean, and that is a wonderful.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
that was going to be my next question is where can people find you or
yeah.
see your work? Yeah.
So yeah, that is in my YouTube channel, and that
Do you
it's,
have what's your YouTube channel so people can go to it and find it?
oh God, I don't even know. I have to put it in the.
We'll put the links. Sure.
I think it's just my name, Marta Sofia Santos.
Okay.
My middle name is Sofia, so it's Marta Sofia Santos.
Okay.
And you would find it with salsa history,
Mhm.
through tags on salsa history.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I will make it available through
Wonderful.
the website.
Martha, thank you so much for being here. I've really enjoyed this conversation so much. You're such an inspiration.
Thank you so much. I
Yeah,
really
really.
enjoyed this. It's
It's
been really great to be able to share my experience, and I hope it's useful for somebody.
me too. Look, I think there are so many women who are waiting for someone outside of themselves to come and give them permission that
Mm.
it's your time is now and it's okay to do it and you're worth doing it. And I think it's really important for people like you and people like me and everybody in the world to remind each other of that. Like if you're waiting for permission, then please accept this as permission. And like take our permission today and go live your life and go learn to surf, crochet, watercolor, whatever it might be, right?
Yeah, exactly. There is no better time than now, because there might not be, another opportunity in the future. Who knows? So,
So true. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, well, I guess I will be seeing you, and I'm excited to continue to see the other speakers. I saw some of the first ones, so I want to see the other ones because they
Oh,
have
wonderful.
very interesting things to
Thanks.
learn from.
I've tried to put together a pretty interesting, really different perspectives
Mm.
on how to be with what's here and how to move forward, because I think we're all going to pick up something different from everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
cool. Well, thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Okay. Well, thank you. Take
Okay.
care. Bye
Okay.
bye.